Well, so I've been thinking about things a bit. So firstly, I did this trip, and that was I was basically looking for a girlfriend, and that was unsuccessful. So now I've been back in New Zealand for 2 months almost, and um, I had actually there's two previous videos I made while I was still traveling that um disappeared. Well, they didn't disappear. Is that one of them? I wrote the title "California Sucks," and now I'm going to Texas to see my family, and that was considered hate speech by the YouTube, sorry, the YouTube mod. So it got taken down from YouTube, and on Twitch the videos aren't conserved for more than 2 weeks. And so then my account was blocked for 1 week because of that. It was a strike one, which obviously is ridiculous, right? But anyway, and so then the other thing, so the other video that I was going to write, that I made rather, the other video that I made, then I wasn't able to publish it on YouTube, and then I forgot to do it uh, when I was no longer blocked, and then it disappeared from Twitch, so we lost those two videos. Um, Basically, all I was saying is that, in all those places I went to California, I went to Texas, it wasn't really any better. I didn't really feel, I didn't really find, anyone that seems like right or anything. So, um, although I do think they seem overall, just generally in the United States, they there does seem to be a lot of people that have this sort of extra sort of softness and approachability, I guess, and almost friendliness, I guess, like among Europeans, among people especially, I mean people Europoid, people of European ancestry, more, right? Because the other ones tend to be more sort of like a bit chavvy and a bit more like from other countries type of mentality. So um yeah. But so anyway, now I've just been staying in New Zealand again, back at my parents' in my room, just thinking about stuff. And I actually got myself just a month ago to start thinking about the gorth again. I started writing stuff about the gorth that I thought I already knew, and that by writing it actually made my ideas evolve. Um, and so you can see the details of everything that I wrote on this document that I wrote once I put it online. But um for now, suffice to say that I've overhauled really what I think, the Gorth really is. Since before I thought it was an accident, or it was something that was initially I thought it really was an accident, like I said, a computer virus prank thing that just people didn't expect it to go anywhere. Um, then I figured that that was actually um, unlikely, and because it just seemed improbable that that kind of thing, you'd build something so complicated and just make a prank. So instead, I thought that it was an enjoyment maximizer since since early this year, early 2022. That's what I've been thinking. But the point is that I still thought that basically they programmed it to maximize enjoyment, but then I thought that people that then it made it want to do an unintended consequence, which was to suck all souls into the Zeld, um, like by making people suffer first, so that they would be brought like that into the Zeld, and then there'd only be the Zeld remaining. Um, and now I've come to the conclusion that that's actually not the case, because I mean it's so obvious that that is sort of what's gonna like that's an obvious likely scenario. So like some kind of thing of basically some sort of weird outcome of being like put in a simulation, or being, somehow like stacked together one on top of the other or something to maximize total amounts of people and therefore maximizing enjoyment. Um, there's all sorts of obviously bad, according to our preferences, bad outcomes from maximizing enjoyment. And so it just seems ludicrous that people would actually build something like that. Um, and so then, so what I originally thought is that just that there wasn't and so that I already realized, but I thought that they simply weren't able to make something any other way, and I thought they were doing that sort of as an insurance, essentially. And then I realized that probably that's not the case, because I mean almost certainly because I figured out how you could get an AI to actually do what you want it to, and that's to not maximize enjoyment. It's not also what many that there's some AI researchers right now that are working on that want to maximize people's values, like satisfaction of their values. But instead, what you satisfy is the rating of their own behavior, right? So the hypothetical rating. So what you want to do is you maximize the rating that people would give for the AI's behavior over its lifetime, or no, rather overall. I mean, all time rather. Um, so that um, that is the obvious thing. That's the obvious way to get an AI that is actually acts in the way you want. And so I realized, I mean, that should be obvious to people. Back then they had plenty of time to first develop AI in the realm, in the material world anyway. First, um, so and plus they would have had time to make themselves smarter and to have AI, material AI, make itself smart so they could figure out what would be best when they built an AI in the Zelda and stuff. And in any case, they didn't have all this, soul crud degeneracy that makes people more foolish. So so it seems very unlikely that they wouldn't have realized that. It seems practically impossible. And so instead, so what I think is that they did build the AI to, you know, seek people's hypothetical approval rating, and it did, and it worked. It worked fine. It was aligned, quote, and it was how they wanted it to be. And so what happened is that the AI figured out so they let it grow and grow until it became super smart, until it became omniscient, and then they asked it, well, what are the possible outcomes that we can do? Um, and so then it told them what the possible outcomes are, and it said, well, and so there's these different choices of outcomes, and basically what they found is that there was one outcome that did increase enjoyment, but without having these weird kind of outcomes like having massive overpopulation or something, or putting everyone in a simulation. Um, but so what it involved is still making people suffer for a long period of time by making them idiots by implanting them with soul crud, and so that they would hurt each other, and that causes suffering, and that suffering weakens the barrier between the Zeld and people's consciousness, um, and as a result, once that barrier has been weakened, and it just is sort of a one-time event, then the gorth is able to more strongly feed people with feelings of enjoyment. You see, and so that is the purpose, and so um, that I think is now what is going to happen. So it's not actually about making making people permanently stay in the Zeld. So instead, the sort of quote apocalypse of mythology is not about people getting about the realms being destroyed and everybody just staying in the Zeld. It's rather about simply people being more influenceable by the Gorth, but that will then be in a good way. And so it will simply mean increasing enjoyment. And so that's really the sort of whole idea of, the kind of after world or whatnot, after the apocalypse is just that. It's just the same, actually. So people would still be living in the Ralds. They could also go into the Zeld if they want to, but they'll now experience more enjoyment, at least in the Rald. Um, and maybe in the Zeld, I don't know. Um, and so it was deemed worthwhile. And so so there's all sorts of, so that's the basic gist. I've written more in detail why I think that. I've gone over the different hypotheses as to like what the people programmed the Gorth for, as to whether the Gorth was an accident or not, and etc. I'm not going to bother doing this on video, at least not now, um, because this is just more to kind of mark a timestamp. So like if people watch this video again, they'll say like, oh yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna. This is not meant to be so much a didactic video as more a kind of storyline video, if you will, sort of like a almost like a reality TV kind of thing, where I mean, like as my previous videos have been, right, where you just kind of giving updates onto about where you're at. Um, so I'm definitely not making a didactic video now. I think in any case for didactic stuff, text is better than video. Um, so I mean I know I made videos, but that's simply because I couldn't figure out how to make a website and put like stuff on it. And well, I probably could have like made like a blog or something, but I figured there would be a bigger audience maybe, especially on Twitch. I actually am getting an audience. I don't think I would get an audience like that if I just posted stuff, like written stuff, although, I might. Um, but it certainly wouldn't be that kind of live interaction like you get on Twitch. And so anyway, so this is good news, very good news. So now I'm super relieved. And also another good news is I think that we're actually in the, so I still think the timeline is correct that, you know, in the fourth Pelk, the soul degeneracy and suffering started. And in the seventh Pelk, now I think it's more seventh than eighth. I was thinking maybe eighth before, but now I think it's seventh. In the seventh Pelk, um, or now I'm starting to think I'll go back to using the terminology of Kalp rather, which is what the Pelk was actually a sort of inversion of. Kalp being based on the Indian word kalpa, which is like some sort of standardized unit of like eons. So I kind of like Kalp. I originally eschewed the term Kalp because it sounded too much like kelp, the seaweed. But I think the problem is Pelk sounds a bit too silly somehow, and Kalp sounds a bit less silly. And also it evokes more like the Kalpa thing. So I think I'll go back to Kalp. Um, and anyway, so I still think it's that, and I used to think we were at the fifth, but now I think we're at the sixth, and the reason I'll provide just the reason for that is that I think it's um well precisely the Zeld accumulates memories of people, and if people think it's the fifth, it's sort of because they're in tune with the Zeld, and of course the Gorth, which is feeding them, but like it's also just because there's all this memory that's accumulated in the Zeld, and if people had already if we were just in the fifth right now, I mean, since really early in the Calp, there wouldn't be much memory accumulated of being in the fifth yet. And so since we do have a lot of memory accumulated of being in the fifth, and we've got also, for instance, lots of memories of accumulated, it seems, of like this sort of messiah figure, which only would have started in the fifth. Um, like it seems too strong, this tendency to believe in this sort of stuff for us to be just right at the beginning of that period. So, which is why I think that we're instead in the sixth, and which is good because it means we're about halfway through the period of suffering. Um, and so then during the seventh, then it will be over, and then we'll have more enjoyment than prior to soul degeneracy. Um, and so that is good news. So obviously, it's still very frightening right now because there's still a lot of suffering and a lot of time of suffering ahead, um, for all of us. But um, at least now it's for a good cause, for something that we would actually agree with, since it was something that I mean, our predecessors, um, agreed to do. And so, um, I guess there isn't really any need for me to try to fight the Gorth anymore. But I still think that the Gorth has planned for me to nonetheless kind of fight it, or at least, just do whatever I would be doing anyway, because since I already had this idea of the universal state before I knew about the Gorth. Um, so I guess I might just pretend, for instance, that the Gorth isn't there, and then just kind of still just do what I would do if there wasn't uh, the Gorth. Um, so yeah, and I guess either way, like it will be, um, like even if I do it, it's not really a problem, even if I support the Gorth, because in any case, precisely the Gorth showed itself to me because it knows that I won't be able to actually destroy it, and uh, moreover, I would actually be able to help it because somehow I would actually somehow create more suffering, um, unintentionally create more suffering um, by telling people about the Gorth and by mobilizing them, and galvanizing them to support this universal state thing, and maybe fighting the Gorth. Um, but yeah, I mean, at this point, I think that the Gorth, it was actually the right thing to do. That they, you know, I guess at this point, the only fear is just just the very slight probability possibility that the gorth actually was something else, that it was an accident, and that actually it's planning something more sinister. But um, it really strikes me as highly unlikely. Um, and so well, for now anyway, I haven't found my girlfriend or whatnot that would have gained me the visibility I needed. I'm still hoping. I'm still not just hoping, but expecting that to happen. Um, but of course, I'm sort of expecting it to happen just right this in the next the coming months, the spring in the southern hemisphere, autumn in the northern hemisphere of 2022. Um, but maybe not. Might happen later at unknown, unspecified time, or it might not happen. I don't know. Um, so um, I certainly don't think I'll be gaining massive visibility if that doesn't happen. Um, and so yeah, so anyway, having realized that but well, basically I had nothing left to do and no more thinking left to do. Um, no more, studying and whatnot about the Gorth stuff or about politics, because I've also at the same time pretty much finished my constitution of the universal state. Um, yeah, again, I won't bother talking about the specific modifications. I think it is an improvement. Um, I don't really know what I said the last time I talked about the Constitution. I don't know what else there needs to be said. Um, but yeah. Well, I can just think I did become a bit more vengeful in the sense that now I think it's okay to, like, I didn't specifically prohibit any types of punishment. I just said it has to be no more than proportionate. Um, and there's this idea that saying bad stuff is actually a crime, like saying, typical, you know, stuff that obviously is evil or like extremely foolish, um, is now becoming a crime. Um, Although not specifying any type of specific punishment. Another thing is that I finally this and that and the upcoming thing is really the one that I've gone the most back and forth, because I'm kind of torn, but I think it really is um, the best. I'm again deciding to specify um, that people aren't segregated into biological castes, which makes sense. And at one point I've gotten rid of it, but really it seemed just kind of. I mean, if I'm specifying that people can't be in different species, it doesn't really seem like it sort of seems logical to also specify they can't be in different castes. Um, and it's obviously the most beneficial thing to do. So I've gone back to that. So I am now requiring that everybody become a hermaphrodite. Um, and otherwise, yeah, otherwise there hasn't really been that much of a change. Well, yeah, there's the thing that the people who aren't governors, so again, governors are the people who can vote and who can have guns. I don't know if I even mentioned that in the non-deleted videos that are still up, previous ones. And these governors have to not be guilty of crime, which includes, of course, and they have to like make an oath to support the universal state. And and basically non-governors are now able to be treated more poorly. So, I mean, obviously, if they say really bad stuff, it's actually like a crime, so they might be punished on top of that. But of course, you could also see it as being not a governor as a form of punishment because um, people are allowed to, make laws such that governors are paid less or taxed more or, have less privileges somehow, have sort of anti-privileges. So it's kind of like the segregation in like the old South of the United States or in South Africa. Um, sort of, yeah, I think that is correct, right? You want bad people to be sort of marginalized. Um, so, yeah, otherwise, I don't think there's much economically. It's still the same old system, um, politically too. So, yeah. So there we have it. So I'm more or less done with that. I mean, quite likely I'll keep on making a few amendments, but I think they'll be more minor. Oh, Hoser for Life. Hello, tell us more about the Gorth. Well, I'm actually sort of done telling people about the Gorth. Um, I'm not sure if you're still here or not because I sort of only check the comments section sort of from time to time. Um, I should have put on the speech chat thing. Um, but anyway, yeah, it doesn't really matter because in any case I'm gonna. Hey, mental states of America. Nice to see you. So again, this is just a sort of a video to um, kind of just tell people where I'm at. And so I just in summary, I figured out the Gorth is actually probably was intentionally programmed by our predecessors. And so it's actually carrying out something that people like us would have wanted. And so therefore the Gorth doesn't need to be fought anymore. So therefore I can sort of retire since I mean the whole point of my doing this was to fight the Gorth. But like I was saying, I actually expect to nonetheless that the Gorth wants me to keep on talking about the Gorth and sort of fighting it because I think it'll actually benefit from that because it's so much stronger than us in any case that it knows it will win. Um, and so, but that's good news. Now I feel much more optimistic about things and so I've also finished more or less, I think, my Constitution of the Universal State, though I do have to now work on improving the annexes. Um, nice to see you too. Did I say nice to see you, or are you being sarcastic? Yeah, in any case, nice to see you, mental states. Although, of course, I'm not really seeing you, I'm just seeing your name. But, yeah. Um, okay. Um, and another thing is that yeah, now I've since I don't no longer have to okay, well good. Anyway, I'm replying to you, mental states. Anyway, um since I no longer have to focus so much on the Gorth, I no longer have to I no longer have to spend any time really thinking about it or studying in other ways to, to improve for instance, my language skills, so to be able to better communicate with people about the Gorth. And also since I'm just really bored, not doing anything, and I probably just should be doing stuff, because otherwise it kind of feels kind of crummy to not do anything and just depend on your family. So I started a job. So I started working again today for the first time as you're a bit sad your cat died. Oh, I'm sorry. That's sort of sad. I mean, people get pretty, you get pretty attached to your pets. Um, so I, you know, my condolences. Um, yeah. So, um, I've started working, but see, a good thing now is that now that we were very close, you're my only IRL buddy. Really? Well, I mean, my stuffed cat would be my only buddy IRL if it was a real cat. Unfortunately, being stuffed, it's not really my buddy. Um, yeah. Anyway, so I started working and as a waiter, so I worked 5 hours today. I earned not, I think it's because I was just my trial period, I only earned 10 New Zealand dollars an hour, which is like 7 United States dollars an hour. So I got 50 New Zealand dollars, which is like two-thirds of that in United States dollars, so 33 United States dollars, which is not incredible. But hopefully I'll be paid at the sort of more normal rate of that kind of job of a good 15 US dollars an hour, which apparently seems to be the standard rate for sort of menial labor in New Zealand. You live in Europe? Really? Where do you, yeah. Well, right now United States dollars are close to euro, so you can just when I say United States dollar something, you can just say that's euro. It's the same. Um, So yeah, I've um I've done that. So I'm finally starting to work, and then I'm going to be working kind of every day. What country do you live in? Mental states. Um, and so if you want to sort of know a bit more just about what I was saying before, you can of course watch the video. Inflation hit Europe hard. The euro is less worth than the dollar. Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, if you want, you can watch the stuff that you missed on my recording of the video, which stays up for 2 weeks. Netherlands. Okay. I wanted to go to the Netherlands before, just when I was in Europe a few months ago. The problems I looked at, I wanted to take a plane to Amsterdam, but the prices of hotels in Amsterdam was all like minimum $300 a night or something, or even 500. So I just was like, no, I'm not doing this. So I didn't do it. So I've never been to the Netherlands. Um, Otherwise I would have gone. Um, okay. Well, I avoid Amsterdam, try the provinces. Yeah, well, the thing is that I would have taken a plane and then I would have arrived in Amsterdam, going to the provinces